So once again, a very good afternoon to you, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here this afternoon to talk about what's happening within the entertainment industry. That's our focus for today, but I'm sure you'd remember as well that there are not instances in South Africa that have been spoken about, but in America as well. I'll get to that. But first of all, I want to introduce a young man who I think we should all aspire not to be like, but to perhaps emulate some of the things that he's trying to do within this industry through many projects that he is doing. Sean Naidoo is the founder of Becoming Legacy. Hashtag it stops with me. Sean Naidoo, where are you? Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. We've created a culture of you are able to do things quickly if you're able to do some things that others would consider as immoral, that most would consider as immoral.
You know, I really believe in foundation, you need a strong foundation. And the thing that, if I had a message for young people inside of this topic today, it would be watch what you're selling and watch what you're giving up. Because you could be an Oscar winner someday, you could be, you know, some sort of big award-winning actor, actress. And if how you got in was through compromise, that will follow you all the way through. Enjoy that success, because somewhere inside of your core you know what you gave and what you sold. It was not your talent, it was your body. So I just believe that that's something that if I was to say, just stick to it. It may take longer, yes, but it's worth it if you get it in the right way.
Without further delay, everyone, I think I'd really want to get into the crux of why we are here this afternoon and speak to some of the people who we dearly admire within the entertainment space within this country. Let's welcome Linda Sokolo. Yeah! Kagiso Modupi. Tumisho Masha. The Ofori Bote.
Thanks for the sugar.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very, very much for joining us this afternoon for such an important discussion. One more round of applause, everybody. We're obviously here for a very important discussion this afternoon, and I think about something that many, I guess, would perceive to still be uncomfortable talking about. We don't hear much of it. And perhaps the reason why we do not hear much of it is because of what the possible consequences would be if people speak up against these things. In particular, I was telling Sean, the founder of Becoming Legacy, it's hashtag stops with me, is that I became interested in this conversation not because I am someone who per se is in the entertainment industry. I am within the media space itself as a whole. And this is not something that affects the entertainment industry on its own. This is something that affects the media industry as a whole, corporate, and various other areas of the spaces in which we operate. I guess today we'll speak about it within the entertainment space because that I guess is where we all find ourselves in. And it's a discussion that is seldom had about what happens there. And I'm hoping today, as the panel, you'll be able to shed some light about not whether this is just affecting women. Does this affect men within your spaces? I look forward to having that discussion. You'd recall, of course, that we had an incident abroad in the United States where someone who was very respected within the film industry, Harvey Weinstein, where it all just came out and the rot that was exposed about sex for jobs, about exchanges in terms of favors for you to get ahead, And it all just turned out into one very, very, very ugly expose of what happens within the media, entertainment space. And I do not think in South Africa that that is just isolated to America. It certainly is happening in South Africa as well. All right, let's begin that discussion. Let's start with the ladies, as usual. Linda, you and I were having a discussion just a few moments ago about you having started within the entertainment industry, within the arts, quite late in your life. And I simply want to know how rife this is within the entertainment industry. Are we talking about something that has been going on for a very long time and is not spoken about, but we know it is there?
Well, yes, we certainly are talking about something that's been going on for probably as long as the industry's been around. And it's such a gray area in our industry, that because I find that by virtue of the type of work we do, we are expected to be quite intimate as male and female. We don't just see each other as colleagues, we identify the fact that we are male and female. And there are, because of the familiarity that we tend to have within the groups that we work with, I think that familiarity can sometimes be taken a little too far. The minute it starts feeling like it's not okay, you should know it's not okay. Yeah. But it's such that, you know, to touch your colleagues it's not something that's unfamiliar in the industry. Yeah. It's when it stops feeling like it's okay, that it's not okay. Yeah.
Where does one draw the line, Kagiso, so perhaps let me come to you. Where does one draw the line? Obviously, in my earlier discussion with Linda, I was indicating that you obviously, that's where you spend most of your time, at work. And you develop relationships with your colleagues, but where do you draw the line within the workplace, any kind of workplace, in particular yours, where you sometimes have to be intimate with some of your cast members, and that sometimes perhaps one would be a bit uncomfortable with the way that certain things are done, but you cannot speak up, because if you do not want to play a particular part or scene, perhaps you'd be seen to be somebody who is difficult.
I think, you know, the most important thing is, before we get to where do you draw the line, yeah, we should understand where it comes from. You know, the reason why some of these things are happening in our industry is because there's no structure in our industry. You know, there isn't a way in how somebody comes into the industry. So that's why today we just see a lot of people who sell sex, you know, and especially on social media. And that's why we see now you get to be asked, how many followers do you have? And the only way, especially for females, to get into the industry, most of them, they try and push, you know, the number of social media followers that they have. And the only way they do that is by showing skin. And, you know, and so you find that these producers, and because there's a lot of people fighting for roles, yeah, you know, these producers have taken advantage of that, you know, where it's not about the work anymore, it's about the numbers, and it's about what you can give. So there is a lot of females, you know, unfortunately, I'll say this, you know, who contribute towards this kind of behavior, where we're supposed to say it's about the work. Can you perform? Can you do this? And you find here's Linda, who's absolutely amazing at what she does, but then she'll miss out on a role because, you know, she's not showing skin, you know, because she won't give it up. And that's where we need to nip it in the bud and find structure in how people enter the industry, you know.
That structure hasn't been there for a very long time, and I must concur with what you're saying, because we tend to find that on quite a number of platforms where one would think, I think somebody would have been great for that role, and you wonder why, well, not trying to cast any aspersions on someone else's talent, but I think somebody else would have been great at a particular role, but they didn't get it. We find a lot of celebrities who are now being put into roles where it's about how many followers you have, as Kagiso has pointed out, versus the talent, the value add that you bring to an organization or to a particular project. These structures, Tumisha, obviously haven't been there for a very long time. And do you think this has sort of led to fanning what we're seeing within the entertainment industry? How rife is sexual harassment in the entertainment industry?
Well, I think I must commend Kagiso for what he said, but because anywhere where there's no structure, exploitation will obviously follow. And without a structure, it's easy to exploit people. Obviously, we're seeing that if you're going to exploit, if you're going to be an exploiter, even in a structured industry like Hollywood, there will be a lot of exploitation. But I think the other thing that I must say, especially to a lot of young people that as I see here, you know, we were once young ourselves and trying to start out in the industry. And some of the things that you're facing, trust me, it happens with every generation. If you're a young woman or a young man, someone might offer you a role in exchange for a sexual favor. But you've got to remember, even in an industry that is not structured, you have to understand what it is that you're bringing to the table. So if you are prepared as a person who wants to come to this industry, if you have taken the time to work on your craft, to work on yourself, and you believe in yourself, not only should you not be sexually exploited, but you should not be financially exploited either, because that's another form of exploitation that happens, that people are, you know, they come into the industry and they'll take whatever. I just want to be famous. People say that they'll pay you with exposure, and I'm like, I don't know if exposure, you can use that as a form of currency to buy bread and milk, but I certainly am not able to go to Checkers and smile and get a loaf of bread just because I was on a TV show. So as young people, and you are the most vulnerable, because a lot of people in the industry, whether it's your colleagues, your fellow actors, or your directors, or your producers, they think you don't know your rights. And a lot of the times you don't know your rights. Do you take time to even read your contract when it's offered to you? Do you take time to ask around if this contract that I'm getting, is it industry standard? Is it industry norm? You know, a lot of people have an agent, and the agent will say, it's an SABC standard contract. And they go, okay, I'll just sign. Well, what is an SABC standard contract? What is an ETV standard contract? So, guys, what we're saying to you is, in an industry that is rife with all sorts of exploitation, if you know who you are, if you know your worth, and then on top of that, you educate yourself, especially when it comes to things like contracts, what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot ask for, over and above what your agent tells you. Because your agent is like a lawyer. They can only tell you as much as you are willing to ask, right? So you have to empower yourself, and once you're empowered, it will be very hard for people to take advantage.
How does it translate to, I guess, you know, look, I'm just a little girl from the Eastern Cape who came with big dreams to Johannesburg, and many people will share my story of coming from the Eastern Cape to come and find my passion. And how do you tell that to a little girl who has come from the Eastern Cape or rural KwaZulu-Natal or somewhere? How do you tell the little girl, Tumisho, that you can become legacy, you can become what you want to become, and there is this predator, he's known to be one of the best producers in South Africa, and he could do no wrong?
I think the first thing we've got to understand is it takes a long time to become an overnight success. Yeah. So a lot of people are hoping that, you know, because they saw so-and-so, and, you know, I had never seen her before or him before, and then suddenly he was like really famous, and then she was doing this, and then she was doing that. Hopefully it can happen for me. Some people come to Joburg and boom, everything works out. Some people come into Joburg or to the industry and it doesn't work out, it takes time. But if you start with yourself and you say, we've got to start taking personal responsibility. I'm going to say to my daughter, you've got to take personal responsibility for yourself. First of all, finish school. I get a lot of people, and I don't know, but it's people who they grew up being told how pretty they are or how handsome they are, and suddenly they think, oh, but I can now act. It's like, no, you know, it takes more than that. You're not just going to stand there and be pretty, right?
Finally TV.
Yeah, finally TV. And they hope that if they get to meet you and know you, hi, my name is so-and-so, if I give you my number, can you get me a role on TV? And you're like, it doesn't work that way, you know. You actually have to go through a structure. You have to finish school. Let's start there, like finish your high school, you know. And then after that, get some sort of training to do what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it that in this industry we don't respect ourselves enough to actually just like hone our talent? If you're talented at any, if you're a talented footballer, you're not gonna be chosen to play for Kaizer Chiefs if you've not gone to an academy or trained properly. You know what I mean? You have to train all the time. But this is the only industry where people think, actor.
The power dynamics, Kofi, I think let's come to you. The power dynamics are certainly something that would really play out in something like this, where you have somebody who is extremely senior and seems to be on top of their game, if I may, in terms of giving roles to people, whether it is based on their abilities or not. How does the little one, how does the small person speak up against somebody who's been in that powerful position for so long? Perhaps is that also why we do not hear many stories come out about sexual harassment within the entertainment industry?
Yeah, well, you made a very powerful, or rather used a very powerful word earlier. You said seems to have it all together. So yes, they may have a position that grants them a certain level of authority. They may have a title that gives them a certain amount of power, but that you also have power as an individual. And the mere fact that they're willing to extend that kind of opportunity to you at a cost in that kind of manner already tells you that you have something that they want. Now, as to whether they're deserving of what you have or not, that's a different story. That's up to you to decide. But you have the power to not let them manipulate you into giving up something so precious for something so cheap. So the role may look really enticing, the break may seem really irresistible, but if you know your worth, if you know your value, if you understand what you bring to the table, something that is so valuable that this powerful person was willing to make you such an offer to get it from you, that should already tell you that if you stay in your lane and keep doing your thing, and like Tumisho says, you keep investing in yourself, you keep preparing yourself, you keep educating yourself, how much better and how much more valuable are you going to be in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time? If I may just tell a quick story, I'm not really in the industry like these guys are. I only do commercials, for the most part. But when I first came to Joburg, I was about 24 years old. And I went to a casting and I got laughed out of the casting room. It was the funniest thing, really. And I had it coming, Fast forward about 15, 16 years later, and I finally get a little break. Now, most people would have given up at that point, and I did. I gave up. But, with time and a little bit more preparation, a little bit more experience, a little bit more confidence, when the opportunity presented itself again, I was in a position to responsibly and intelligently respond to that opportunity, which is what you need to do. You're being educated. Most of you are in AFDA, right? Yeah. Okay, so you know the business, or rather, you have the skills, right? Learn the business. It's the same as the music industry. Look what guys are doing right now. The most successful guys are the guys who come in with knowledge. They don't play themselves. Don't let anyone play you. You have the power.
Have you tried to bring some of those, you want to go ahead, Kagiso? Yeah, please do, please do.
I mean, I'm glad that we're talking to students from AFDA, and that's why most of them are going, because they know what it's like and they know the money that they're spending to get into the industry. But the reality of it is that, you're walking into an industry that is not structured. So you're going to compete with a normal Joe from the streets who's just going to pop up and say, I can do this. So that's reality. But that's not where I'm trying to go. I'm talking about someone who's new, who's coming into the industry and they're from AFDA, right? You gotta understand how the industry works, the entire industry. And that will eliminate a lot of things, because you need to know that the producer is not God.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you understand the structure from channel to a production house being commissioned, to you being actually hired as an actor or as an actress there, you will realize that the producer is just as an employee as you are. They could get fired tomorrow and you could get fired tomorrow. So it's about educating yourself with regards to how the industry works, and just don't chase being that famous actress who has no clue in how things function. So you need to know if this happens, then this is where I go to. If you have an agent, then you go to your agent. But if you don't have an agent, then you have a production manager that you address the issue with. And if the production manager cannot take it forward, then you can go to the producer or the line producer, and then the producer. And then if the producer is the problem, you know who you go to channel. You see what I'm saying? You know how to jump over the problem. But if you're not educated about the industry, then you feel like you're stuck, and it's the only way that I can survive in this industry.
And to also acknowledge the fact that the director cannot hire or fire you.
Yes. The director cannot, they're all employees and trying to put a production together so that channel can get advertising and make money.
Just to add to what you said there,
Yeah.
because you did speak about colleagues as well. I know that there's some colleagues you might bump into later on, and I'm going to say it the way it is. Unfortunately, it's mostly us guys who do that sort of thing. Someone is a little older, they've been in the industry a little longer, they're like, come over here, let me take you under my wing and teach you how to do this, and in return, and you're worried that if I don't, I might get fired, or I might not work because this guy might say something to the director. Your colleagues also can't fire you, okay? So it doesn't matter how long this guy has been in the industry, how respected he is. If it's inappropriate, it's inappropriate, and you have every right to not be cool with it and to take it further and to talk about it. Because that's the other thing, what we're talking about now, is that when one person doesn't report it, either because they think they're too weak to do it, or they think, you know what, I've done this for a long enough time now, and I don't have to report every single thing, the problem festers. That person now thinks they've gotten away with it. Yes. So the next time they get away with it, the next time, by the time you are number 10 and they think they're going to get away with it, it's when it's now even more violent. Because they think they're entitled to it. So please, guys, if something is inappropriate, don't. I think we've passed that stage where we feel silly for mentioning it. It's inappropriate. You don't like it. It doesn't matter why you don't like it. You don't like to be touched that way. It's your right not to be touched that way.
If you're uncomfortable, speak up. If you're uncomfortable, no one has the right to ask you for any favors in exchange for what skill you are selling. You're here, after. You are here to learn, okay? And once you've acquired all those skills, like Kagiso and the rest of our panel was saying, once you know what you are here to do, what you're selling, then you will know. You'll know when something is uncomfortable, that you do not have to do it. You do not have to say yes when you're supposed to be saying no. There are many people who've gotten ahead in this industry. It takes long. It is long. This road is long. It is not an overnight, I tell you. Hey, 2003, I was an intern at the Sowetan, getting on the train in Johannesburg, and basically not being able to afford my rent in Florida. Darling, I am living now. It's my time. It's my time. I had to fight. You have to kick down doors. And I was having a conversation with Linda to say, perhaps the reason why no one has taken advantage of me in that way is because I don't take it, hey? You're not sure what my response will be. Yeah. You're not sure. If you approach me inappropriately, I'd probably tell you, how it's on, or I'm not afraid, because once you hone your skills, and you believe that like any of us, hell, you can do better than any of us sitting here by the time you graduate. Yeah. By the time you graduate, do better than me. Do better than Sislinda. Do better than Kagiso. Do better than Tumisho. They've paved the way for all of you to do what you're supposed to. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to sell? Are you selling skills? Are you selling sex? Are you selling talent? What are you selling?
I'm going to throw the spanner in the works just quickly.
Go ahead.
You've spoken a little bit about contracts and so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting industry, this, because reading your contract is the most vital thing that you will have to do.
Great.
And understanding, because there you go, you audition, you get a part. Fantastic. Before you've even auditioned, you have a vague idea as to the lengths to which your character could possibly have to go.
Yeah.
If somehow, some way, you are, say, doing a daily, and now all of a sudden people are asking you to be a little closer to bare than clothed, if it's not in your contract, it's not in your contract.
Yeah.
If you are not, whatever you've agreed upon is what you are given the scope to do. Also bearing in mind this, you subscribe to doing a soap opera, let's say. Guaranteed, hands down, it's almost like it's a given. We are givers of ourselves as actors.
Yeah.
In that, I will not know, I did not know who Mike Ngvelase was going to be in my life. And many people have asked, how is it kissing Kapel? That's part and parcel. But it's true. This is part and parcel of what it is that you're subscribing to. So when one understands, the scope of, gee, you psych yourself into allowing yourself to be a giver of yourself. In doing so, though, bear in mind that when it starts to feel uncomfortable, even within the parameters of what it is that you have subscribed to, you are still entitled to say, it's gone too far. So like I say, if for some reason in a daily, someone says, no, I need to shoot you like this and maybe see a part of your cleavage in such a way, bare breast or whatever, that's not how the medium works for soap opera. That is just not the medium for a soap opera. If in a drama series they're asking you to do the same, look in your contract and say, is there a possibility of nudity in any of this? No, sorry, my contract doesn't talk about nudity. You need to know, things can't change as they go. So what I'm trying to say as well is that empower yourselves in saying, how far am I supposed to go as an actor? What is permissible and what's not permissible? Because the minute you don't understand what's permissible and not permissible, you will feel like you will feel dirty and you will feel exploited and you will get angry and all sorts of other things. Empower yourself.
Please go ahead.
Speaking of, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Okay, Coffee, go ahead.
Just to build on what you were saying, Linda, I remember. All right, so fear is a huge factor in a lot of in this for a lot of people. Many of us go into jobs or industries with a sense of fear and almost a sense of desperation, and that's always going to put you at a disadvantage. Always. So I remember my first gig with my previous agency. They sent me on a shoot. We had not discussed nudity like you were saying. The next thing the photographer is talking about, well, I'm gonna need you to take your top off and show us some meat. I'm like, dude, but that's not, hey, listen, you on the job or not? And out of fear, because I didn't want to offend my agent, ignorance, and I didn't want to offend my employer, I said okay. I was uncomfortable throughout the whole process. Thankfully, those pictures weren't used. I was fortunate. The point I'm trying to make is don't let fear and don't let desperation make you think that A, you need to submit to what the director or the producer is saying. That's the one thing. But secondly, your agent, you're not beholden to your agent. If they're not representing you in the best way, get rid of them. They work for you. They work for you. Without you, there is no money. So be very clear from the start. I mean, you can wait until you sign the contract, or you can let your agent know from the jump, I will not be doing these kinds of scenes. I will not be taking my clothes off. I will not be kissing people. I will not be letting people touch me. You need to be very specific, because at the end of the day, it's your body, but it's also your brand.
We're not saying that, we could never insinuate that you are to blame when someone makes that kind of move on you. There's always going to be that predator who thinks that they can get away with that kind of behavior until it takes one of you, just one of you, to say no. It's got to stop with you. It's got to stop. Easier said than done. These things happen, but you have to say no. It is possible to get ahead without having to compromise your integrity, without having to compromise what do you look at when you get home alone, okay? Or whether you get home and look in the mirror, you wake up and anyone has a private space when you sit and think about what have I done for the day, what contribution have you made for the day? I always ask myself, what did I do with my day, the blessing that I have been given? And I have to be able to account to myself about what I've done, how I've done it, and how better I can do.
Now you guys have said a lot. And I want to touch on what Kofi said, I want to touch on what you said, and just to bring it, and then I wanted to add a spanner in the works. But just, I think, I don't want to sit here and direct in how you want to, push your brand, right? I think for us sitting here is just to give you an idea of some of the things that might come with a certain route that you take. Because some guys, their brand is sexiness, like six-pack. So, in that space,
why are you pointing at me though?
Coffee, man. You're tall, dark, and handsome. But I'm just saying that, if someone wants to push, for instance, let's say a Maps Maponyane, who is, he's a model, he's sexy, he's and he might be comfortable with that. We're just here to let you know that in a standard contract, it's not there. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable, then you've got the backup of your contract, right? But some people are really just open and they want to push that because that's coming to throwing a spanner in the works. Because we're sitting here and we are bashing these things, and we're bashing and we're saying against it. But being in the work environment, there's certain things that we've seen, and I think there's two sides to a coin. And sometimes you see them and you're like, Mara, maybe you kind of contributed towards this. And which is a sensitive thing for me to say. We need to watch our behaviors at work. Please. We need to understand what is a professional environment. Because then things can become too casual, where you see, someone just tapping your ass and you're like, you're okay with that. Or
that's not an invite.
Yeah, no, you see what I'm saying? But hear me out. And the same way as where I'll go and hang on my gay producer and suck up and do all these things, and he spanks my ass and I'm comfortable with it, And we gotta look at, we need to know what is a professional conduct at work, because it's happened to me before, and with a female producer, where she'd spank my bum, and and for me, I need to know what it's inappropriate, and I need to nip it in the bud before it goes further.
So this was somebody more senior than you.
More senior.
So that brings me to my next question about, we were chatting about this. I'm glad that you brought this up, Kagiso, that I don't want to take away from, I know, a lot of spotlight, and I personally, as a woman, agree with the fact that those at the coalface of violence in this country is perpetrated against women and children. On this particular aspect, you had a senior or a producer, someone who was senior than you, within that space, harassing you. That is sexual harassment.
It is harassment, and I mean, there's things like Woody Christmas party, guys. These things happen, and most of them they start off as, it's better if I do it at a Christmas party because I can blame it on the alcohol.
It always comes up.
And for me, my advice is, if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, don't let it slide. Because then it perpetuates a behavior, because now this person becomes too comfortable. And by the time some of us snap, and then we want to talk about it, and then, when you're sitting in a disciplinary hearing, because I've sat in a disciplinary hearing where it was, here's somebody else, and they're like, but we've seen you spank his bum, and we've seen you spank her bum, so why is this an issue now? It's because we forgot ourselves, we forgot why we are there. We became too comfortable and too friendly, And you don't know who you're dealing with, because I don't know this guy who's maybe art department. I don't know his history. We met at work.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know this lady. You met at work, and you've made it too comfortable that when you now plead your case, it makes it very difficult for people to kind of support you, because they've seen you do it and they've seen her do it. Yeah.
I think I'd agree to a large extent about, I guess, the way that we all have to carry ourselves also. Yes, there are a lot of examples where in a professional environment, please do not misconstrue what I'm saying when I say that the way that you also carry yourself sometimes, I'm not saying is an invitation, but be careful of how we also carry ourselves. What are you selling? The journey that you choose moving forward, whether you're going to be in television or radio or whichever space you want to branch into, I think very importantly, something that struck me quite a lot is what Sean had spoken about. What exactly are you selling? Because what you do today is going to, if you get into some kind of trouble now, while you're still at this level, it stays. In the age of social media, that sticks. If you are known, if you're embroiled in some kind of, if you're embroiled in some kind of sex scandal or sexual harassment case, at this age, it sticks. Times have changed. In the age of social media, I'm even thinking of deactivating my Twitter account. It is brutal. It has become brutal. Instead of us as people using those platforms to empower each other, there are things like, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, things like Black Twitter, Black Twitter, as a platform to pull down black people. Yeah. Where's the platform, Etty? Have you ever seen a white Twitter? Have you ever seen a white Twitter where white people are bashing each other? And we've got a serious problem. We've got a serious problem. And it all starts with you. I'm very excited, in particular, to be speaking to people, or youngsters, who are going to follow within our footsteps. And I guess the journey that you decide to carve for yourself today is what's going to determine where you end up. And I'm telling you, there is no glamour in this business. What you're being sold on Instagram and everywhere else, okay, that's what you get to see. Is another story altogether. Everyone will have a different tale to tell about how they got there. But let me tell you, I'm going to sound like your mother. Guys, hard work. It is sustainable. It stays there for a long time. And if you build a proper brand around yourself, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. Please go ahead, Kachis.
I'm saying, it's true. This thing about Instagram, I mean, we go and we take pictures, and we are in the UK or you are in China, and people, don't realize that I slept on a bench. Yeah. But get out. So with you see me in China, and I'm like, but I slept on a bench. You don't know that. So don't get caught up, and I'm just supporting the statements. Let your work speak for itself, But I'm also stressing on us having to understand the industry and stressing on understanding the professional conduct. You can't sign a contract at Labini and think that, when you get into studio, it's going to be professional. It won't be, because then see sign a jwale, young ton, and a jwale contest as a jwale, So let's try and just be aware of yourself and be aware of your space and what you're doing, and just avoid it, before actually it gets to that space, because it is a very uncomfortable space. I've been in that space. It's very uncomfortable when you get fired because you won't give it up, and then you get called back and they're like, we miss you. And then when you get to work, you realize that person who was actually violating you, got fired, because then they touched a senior actor, and when as a young actor at that time, you didn't have a voice, you didn't know what to do. And what if they didn't touch, let's say, that senior actor? I would have been toast.
But I guess patriarchy, Linda, plays quite a huge role in this. It's something that we're still battling with as a country. Every time we have these discussions, it doesn't necessarily have to be about sexual harassment, but the patriarchal society that we live in fuels some of these things.
Hugely, hugely. So, you know, someone said it so well. Women are brought up with boundaries. You know, cross your legs, do this, do that. Women are brought up with boundaries. What are men brought up with? To just be. That's the patriarchal society that we live in. And I don't think that even men understand that that's what it is that they're being brought into. Because no one has ever stopped you to think that that's what you've been brought into. It's just your right. And we as women, the way that we've been brought up, we don't even question it because that's what we know. You know, this is the society that we live in. So this sense of entitlement that I think that men generally walk around with, it's because they weren't taught otherwise. So it's almost like a re-education within this patriarchal society that needs to be done, because it's not just about our industry, it's about society as a whole. So if you're now taking these laws that we've understood from society and then we impose them into this industry of ours, same principles, no matter what it is, as a woman you will always slide back into what it is that you know of being a female. And as a man, you'll always pounce into what it is that you know of the freedom and the liberty that you have to do. So, you know, there definitely is a lot of that.
And do you think perhaps it's got a lot to do with, I think, you know, ever since there've been quite a spate of these attacks on women and children in the country, a lot of discussions have been had about, I think, the upbringing that you speak about where you're told at home. And I think, you know, many of the males here would have that, you know, boy doesn't cry, a boy doesn't, you've got to be strong, you know, there's certain things that it's almost a sense of, if you want something, go out and get it. It's like you don't have to ask. Is that part of the problem? Let me come to you, Kofi.
Well, it's funny we're touching on this because initially what I wanted to talk about was the fact that that very same education or lack thereof that a lot of guys have, and I want to speak specifically to the guys, that's going to come back to bite you in the butt. Because on the one hand, you know, in an industry like this, when someone inappropriately approaches you, their thinking is because you're male, you should be accepting of any kind of disrespect that they throw your way. So if I grab your butt as a man, you shouldn't complain because, I mean, all men are promiscuous, right? You shouldn't have a problem if the wardrobe lady touches you inappropriately because, I mean, hey, you guys all want it, right? I mean, like, you understand the mentality of entitlement, right? So it shouldn't be a problem for you. So you're going to start feeling some type of way about it, and that's what the ladies go through on a regular basis. And, you know, in this industry, actually in any industry, you will come into contact with that. In corporate, in the public sector, in the business world, and in entertainment, sports, you name it, you will come across it because they see you as a commodity. Now, the responsibility is on you. And you guys are now doing tertiary level education, which means that you have the will, you should have the will, and you should have the desire to educate yourselves along those lines, on how to conduct yourself, not just as an individual, but also, and I'll keep going back to this, as a brand. We talked about the fact that this sticks with you for life. For life. Harvey Weinstein is not coming back from this. His money's not gonna save him. Yeah. No matter where he goes, people are gonna be like, oh, you that dude. You know, they may not say it to his face, but like there will be those snickers when he walks into a room, and a man who's accustomed to a certain level of privilege and power, that's gotta hurt. Yeah. That's gotta hurt. Imagine not even being anywhere near that powerful, and everyone on the street reminding you of one little mistake you made when you were young. So you need to start educating yourselves now. Now,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a really great thing that you mentioned there. And I'd just like to talk to the brothers for a little bit as well. And of course, just to the sisters as well. But, you know, guys, I remember when I was at drama school and starting out in the industry and stuff, I think the one thing that I remember, I was fortunate enough to be around a group of people where things that we take for granted now, like good manners, were really important then. You know, I don't know, but I feel like maybe it was 20 years ago, but things like when you get to work, if you're on set, if you're lucky enough to have a role, even if you're the lead actor, you actually greet everybody, you know? You respect women. So even if you're working with a co-star, I remember when I started out, there were, you know, I did a lot of scenes or shows where there were scenes of you, the male lead, so there were romantic scenes and things like that. But there was an unwritten rule book of how to behave in those things, where it's like the scene says, we are going to kiss, and then it ends. You don't like take it further because, well, we're here now, we may as well. That doesn't give you the right to go, well, we can finish this off later, or because we're going to be playing romantic leads, maybe we should date first. You know, those things were like sort of ingrained in us, like you have to have good manners, you have to treat people with respect. And likewise, ladies as well. There were those things of you have to be someone who has good manners. When you come on set, you as a lady have to uphold yourself in a certain way. There are certain things that if they are inappropriate and you don't like them, you have every right to say, I don't like them. But having said that, you're not allowed any diva tendencies that we now see, where people throw their costumes on the floor because my character would never dress like this, or something like that, you know? And I just want us to go back to the basics a little bit, because the basics are what we need in this industry. Because if you go back to the basics of good manners, there are just certain things that you won't allow yourself to do, especially at work. Like, let's forget about your private life, because we're talking about sexual harassment in the workplace in our industry. And a lot of that sexual harassment happens because we forget the basics of good manners. I'm playing in a scene with you, you're my wife, but we're playing. It's not real. So at some point, we must remember we are playing. I'm just kissing you at this angle, but it's not going to be the same way I'd kiss you if you really were my wife. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if we remember those things, and if we talk about it before, like, okay, how would you prefer me to handle you in that scene? I tell you, it takes away a lot of stuff that later on there might be a misunderstanding. And guys, don't be afraid to come across as maybe a little bit of a nerd to say, Siswam, okay, we have to do this now. How would it be comfortable for you? Because we have to do this and make it look real when it's on camera. But I want you to be comfortable.
Yeah. We spoke just briefly about the respect that a guy or a woman should give their colleague when they are doing intimate scenes. There's something that I just wanted to touch on. It's not a proper kiss. It's called a stage kiss, firstly. So if someone thinks that they are, you know, they were just so caught up in the moment that they then accidentally slip their tongue into your mouth, no. There's no such thing, because professionally you know in your head that that's not what you're allowed to do. Be you male, be you female. Just because he's cute or just because she's gorgeous, no. And because that person you should walk away from the experience with that person respecting you still. That's number one. 2, you don't rehearse kisses in your changing rooms. You will read your entire script, and then you will get to the part where it says, and then they kiss. Okay, and then post the kiss, you carry on with the scene. The idea of anyone saying to you, we need to rehearse a kiss, is lies. What are you rehearsing? What are you rehearsing?
I'm sure
it's just
a kiss. Hey, what are you rehearsing?
I almost guarantee.
Stage kissing. I think if you don't know how to stage kiss, like go and find out how to do it. Because I think that's very important. You say that, but I find nowadays we don't talk about those things like a stage kiss, because it's not a real kiss. So people kind of pretend they don't know what it is. But you should know what it is. It's a stage kiss.
If you're an actor, you should know what a stage kiss is.
But you will only know if you're trained.
You only know if you're trained. Yeah. And on top of it, I can almost guarantee you something for nothing. If someone has the audacity to say, let's practice our kiss in the change rooms, you're already feeling uncomfortable, right? I can almost guarantee you something for nothing. When you get onto that floor and the director's blocking you, the director's not going to request you to kiss for a rehearsal. Why is your colleague asking you to kiss behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Take ownership of your space, your being. and move forward.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and to you, the panel. My name is Mutlalipule Lethabopura, and I am a SWIFT member. SWIFT is Sisters Working in Film and Television. We had a discussion last month based on sexual harassment, whereby ladies came forward talking about our director, Kaluma Taban. And some lady stood up and saying, but do you think that men actually know what sexual harassment is? Because I can actually walk into a room with a little black dress maybe, and then the guy can just say, look, you look beautiful. Is that harassment? Do
men know
sexual
what
harassment
sexual harassment is, Coffee?
Yeah, men definitely know what sexual harassment is. I think sometimes the confusion comes from the fact that, both sexes tend to muddy the waters from time to time. Let's just be real. So you may have an issue being complimented when you walk into the room with a black dress. There's another woman who's going to take offense that no male figure in the room complimented her on the dress she was wearing. So we need to be very clear on what sexual harassment is. We need to have a generic understanding of what it means so that we can, communicate one clear message. Right now, it's like this section of the population says this, that section says this. Who do we listen to?
Do you know what sexual harassment is, Kagiso?
I need to stop it. We are in the industry, and one of the key things in the industry is tone.
Yeah.
We understand tone. I can say, oh, that's a very nice dress. But if I say that's a very nice dress,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And just to add on that, we need now to be guardians or custodians of correcting our colleagues and not allowing them to say So if you make a sword and someone says, oh, but I would do him. We need to say, or if it's we're at work. That's not how we say things. Because I understand that. Or because what cameraman. You know what I mean? We are friends with like the crew, and they say these things, and we need to nip it in the bud from there. So to answer your question, we know what sexual harassment is, and let's not pretend like we don't. We know.
Yeah.
Cecilia.
Thanks. Please come through.
Hi, everybody, and good afternoon to the panel. My name is Gilebohile Kuduge. Kagiso said something about how you need to know the structures in whichever production house you're working in. And right now we're talking about sexual harassment in the workplace. Sometimes it happens that we have a lot of social events, so outside of the workplace. So now let's say I work for a different production company and I meet Kagiso, I'm gonna make an example of you, sorry about that, and something inappropriate happens. How then do I, as a woman or a man, report it? Do I then go to my people to report it, or do I go to where he works to report it? Is there a system where, even though I'm not working with you, I can report and state what has happened to me and my discomfort?
100%. There are many avenues, and the most common one is police station. To say, this person works, this production house, and we're at an event, and this is what happened. And you will see everything else will fall into place, because the cops are equipped. But they will kind of give you an idea as to, what the next level is. Yeah.
Can I also just add something to the ladies, or even to the guys, actually, especially to the guys, because we know nothing. But things like sexual harassment or abuse or anything like that, there are systems that are so in place. I mean, I've gone through the legal justice system to know that there are actually systems in place, and the law is very partial. They don't take sides, eh? They will arrest the person that you've accused, and then that person must then go and answer, right? So do not be afraid of going to the police, like Kagiso said, and having your story that is straight, and then telling them that this is the story and something must be done. There's also places like, there's the courts where you can go, especially when it comes to things like domestic violence or violence against women. And I think that sometimes, now I'm going to say it to the women, but women, you guys get a little bit scared, especially when something really has happened, to go there and really be like, no. You're going to make sure that this is investigated. You're going to follow up on it. And everyone believes that the state and the system are not really there. If those people don't help you at the police station, escalate it. Find out who the captain is in the police station. If the captain is not doing it, you have every right to find out who the highest person is. And I'll give you an example. The brigadier is the highest person. If no one's listening to you at the charge office, find out who the brigadier is. They will usually listen to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's have your question very quickly.
My name is Chriselda Lewis, and I'm just going to ask this question, right, but it's more on the personal side, especially for young men, you know, especially you guys. I want you three to actually, like, answer this question. One thing that I want to know, right, the advice that you can give us young men is that how do we move on from a bad relationship or a heartbreak? Because we find that we as gents, the best solution to move on from a heartbreak is to get another girl, and we find ourselves breaking these women, you know what I mean? Because we as gents, with this current situation that is happening in the country whereby women are being killed and all that stuff, because we have this idea that, you know, we need to beat women, we need to discipline them and all that stuff. But at the same time, we as men, we are the ones who are broken inside. And now it's starting to show in our actions. So one thing, the advice that I'm looking for is, what do we do? How do we move on from a bad relationship or a heartbreak so that we can fix ourselves as men first before we move on to another relationship? That's one thing I want to ask, sir.
I think that's so true. I think if we speak about it holistically, you know, I think what is quite clear is that broken people break people. So a lot of discussion has been had about us as a society, about why we're so violent, about why we behave in a certain way. Is there something that we need to, perhaps we need to have a conversation with ourselves about a host of things that we are facing. So gentlemen, I guess on the issue of, you know, broken men not trying to, not per se personal relationships, but yeah.
Powerful question, Christoph. Powerful question. Thank you very much for that. You know, I think my first statement would be chill. Men need to just learn how to chill. You know, from a young age, there's all this pressure, get you a girl, get you a fine girl, get you a yellow bone, get you a red bone, get you this, smash her. You know, we jump into relationships, we think they're relationships, they're not relationships, they're dalliances. You know, for the most part, because a relationship requires maturity. Most of us don't have maturity. So we learn how to mac a chick, we share, we get some, and then we get caught up. Share, like, yeah, like, you know, and we get caught up. Then when we get caught up, we realize that, oh my goodness, I'm not as mature as I thought, but now your ego's on some like, yo, but keep acting like you are. Yeah. You know, so how do I handle this? Oh, like you lay the smack down. We listen to idiots who tell us, control her, discipline her, teach her, that kind of nonsense. You know, she's not your kid. Her dad doesn't do that to her. Why would you? You know, her dad is love for her, and you're claiming to be love. If her dad's not smacking her up, why are you? So the thing is, first of all, we need to build ourselves. And that's why I was saying that at this age, especially at this age, you can educate yourself, and you need to find the will to educate yourself, re-educate yourself on the reality of who you are as an individual. First, get to know who you are first, before you even try and bring a girl into your space. Because you're just gonna confuse the crap out of her. You're gonna tell her what she wants to hear, get her all happy. Half the time she leaves you because you're not who you said you were. Yeah. You know, so like dudes on something like, oh yeah, you know, a girl, you know, like rappers are killing us right now. Rappers like, you know, girl, I'm gonna do this for you, and like and R&B singers, and we buy into the hype, but we don't get that there's a lot of work that goes into this. Think of it this way: her dad is, if she's 20 years old, her dad has loved her for 21 years. That's work. He loved her from when she was in the womb, started preparing for her, loved her when she was born, nurtured her, loved her when she started walking, when she started talking. It was a process. Now she's a grown woman. The understanding is that if you're gonna be in her life, and that's why a lot of dudes, your girls' parents don't even know who you are. Because you know you can't do the work. You can't do the work. So,
yes.
So build yourselves. Build yourselves. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. When you build yourself into a man, you respect yourself. Yeah. And that's more important than her respect. Respect yourself. If you respect yourself, she doesn't have to like you. She doesn't have to respect you. She doesn't have to want you. You're cool with who you are. You don't have to change a thing about yourself because you know that the right one is going to get you and is going to appreciate you. And now you can put that work in.
Guys, we're really running out of time.
Because this is someone worth investing in. But you have to start by investing in yourself. Look, sex will always be there. I know, like, it's, you know, like, we talk about celibacy and abstinence, and guys are, oh man, shut up with that nonsense. Look, a lot of dudes your age are in hospital right now catching STDs. Young dudes are getting beaten up by husbands because they were trying to smash somebody's wife. Someone's getting cut up because he was macking on someone's girlfriend at the club. That's immaturity. A man does not put himself in those situations. He's too concerned about building something.
Yes. Okay, dumelang. Okay, lebitso la ka ke Mangwako. So I'm gonna ask a question about the Renadi extras who are currently starting to be actors. So a group of friends, but they joined this agency, right? And then they were going to Rhythm City to shoot for extras. So I also joined, and then I was fortunate enough that one day they took me as a featured extra. But then as I was working there, this one floor manager liked me and started to tell me things. I told him, you know what, get me wherever I want, then we'll talk about it. It will be my choice whether I do it or not. And then he stopped talking to me, but then we were working together. But my friends, the agency was not paying them. So I didn't know what to do because I was watching them not being paid, whereas I was calling that woman, say, Mama, you need to pay me because I'm paying my rent. And she was paying me right in front of them, but they were not being paid, and they didn't even know what to say or who to talk to, and but they paid their money and everything, but they were not paid for shooting. Every day they were going to Rhythm City, shooting, but they were not paid.
Perhaps within, extras and all of that, because I mean, that for me is seen as, those who want to obviously get into the industry and hoping at some point you'll get a big role in future in whatever TV show or soapy. Is that quite rife, I guess? Could it possibly be rife? I mean, if you look at extras from the outside, one would think, okay, these ones who will really want to crack it.
We see this every day.
Yeah.
We see this every day, man. And I'm glad that you brought it up. And it just goes back to you understanding, how to get into the industry. There's a lot of broke actors out there, including myself. And because there's so many people who are desperate to get into the industry, I could start an agency, and get the 350 from you guys, take pictures, and promise you that no, one day, just like Quentin, just like Dingan, because they always use that example, right? Just like Mama, if you don't have an understanding of how the industry is and what being an extra is, and what being a featured extra is, and what having one call is, then you will always fall into these traps. But I also want to say to us, who are in the industry, that we see these things. We see a cable basher, or we see someone who's got art department promising an extra that, no, I'm going to elevate you. We need to stand up for that, because those are our sisters, and it's happening to them. We need to start, askuzaneni, man.
Bottom line, askuzaneni. Did that answer your question?
My name is Palesa, and my question is, how do I still secure my job security, like have job security while still speaking up?
That's a very good question. That's why many people don't speak up, is fear of not being booked, fear of not landing a big role, fear of just being sidelined totally, and that is happening.
You have to get to a point where you're drawing a line. If you're drawing a line and saying, I'm not going to be sexually exploited, I'm not going to be financially exploited, I'm not going to be exploited in any way, if that costs me my work right now, because remember, everything has a cost. So for you to continue not to be exploited, the cost might be that you no longer have that job security. And that's okay, because that's what you stand for. another job will come through. If you're good at what you do, another job will come through. But the good thing is you've put your line in the sand. Now everybody knows that you don't take that. You know what I mean? And now everybody knows that no one should have to take that, because also sometimes some of these things that you think you're not doing just for yourself. You're doing it for a whole host of other people. I think all of us who are here, and you yourself, I see you over there, you know, we've said no to a lot of things. And we say no knowing that after this, I might lose this very job that I'm in, or there might be this rumor in the industry that I'm difficult. But that's okay, because when I get my next job, at least they already know that I'm difficult, and these are the terms by which I'm going to be hired.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so, so much for your time. And I think just one more round of applause for these phenomenal, yes!